Good morning. We're beginning a new message series today for the next 5 weeks. We're calling it Back to Reality. We can guess why. That most of us are back home from vacation, we're back to work, kids are back to school, and oftentimes back to church. Back to reality. Some of us are happy about it, some of us not so happy. That many dread this time of year when the carefree days of summer are over and it's time to get back to the daily grind of work and school and busy schedules. Why can't it be summer all year long? That the readings today give us a different perspective. That the first reading is from the book of Proverbs and reminds us that there comes a time to forsake foolishness and advance in the way of understanding. We read about wisdom's preparation for her banquet of fine food and wine. This banquet symbolizes joy and closeness to God. This time of the year can be viewed as an opportunity to come back to that reality, to refocus on what's really important, our relationship with God. That remember almost a year ago when we started our first message series called Next Steps. We said that as Christians we're called to be students or followers of Jesus Christ. That it was all about discipleship. We talked about the things each of us could do to strengthen our relationship with Christ and with one another. We described them as steps along a journey of faith, a journey of discipleship. How many of us here remember each of the 5 steps? Sometimes it's a good time for a refresher. That STEPS was an acronym. It spells out our plan of what we're called to do and how to follow them. That the first S was about service in a ministry and missions. T was about tithing and giving generously. E was about engaging in small groups. P was about prayer and the celebration of the sacraments. And the 5th and final step was sharing our faith. That we heard last year that the steps could be taken one at a time as God calls us to take them. We may or may not be serving in a ministry or a mission. We may or may not be engaging in a small group, but we hope that you've been praying about all these steps, open to whatever the Lord may be calling you to do next. And if you're here at Mass this morning, obviously then you're already taking one of those steps, prayer and the practice of the sacraments, which is really the key step, the primary step, the step that all of us need to take first in order for the other steps to be fruitful. That taking this first step should lead us on the path towards trying the other steps, 1 or 2 at a time. But it all starts with prayer and the sacraments. We talked about how the 7 sacraments in the church are all encounters with Christ, with the Eucharist being the source and summit of our Christian faith. At our gospel reading today and what we've been hearing for the last several weeks is a perfect reminder of this. Scripture is taken from the Gospel of John, chapter 6, which is known as the Bread of Life discourse. This gospel, Jesus tells the crowd that he is the living bread that came down from heaven. That the bread that he gives is his flesh for the life of the world. The crowd doesn't understand what he's saying, so Jesus makes it even more clear. Unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you do not have life within you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. As Catholics, we believe that Jesus' words here mean exactly what they say, and that he's truly present to us in the Eucharist. We're not talking about metaphors or symbols or representations. The bread and wine become his body and blood during the consecration at Mass. Real flesh, real blood, Jesus truly present. And that changes everything for us. Receiving Jesus in the Eucharist changes us physically and spiritually. Taught that the Eucharist unites us to Christ and to each other. It renews the life of grace we receive at our baptism. It restores our strength and separates us from sin. That here, the celebration and truly understanding what we receive in the Eucharist is primary to our whole life as a disciple of Jesus Christ. That there, when we keep our eyes focused on Jesus, then there we have our perspective set in order. That once we start to take our eyes off of Jesus as our primary focus, you see, that's when things start to falter. That we can actually receive the gift of the Eucharist and give thanks every day at daily Mass, not just on Sundays. Do we take advantage of that gift as often as we can? Well, that here we have our Mass celebrated twice, Monday through Friday, daily Mass, 8 a.m. in the chapel and at 5:30 p.m., times that are designed to accommodate most people's work schedules. Summer vacation is over. Now really is a great time to get back to our reality as Catholics, to advance in the way of understanding, making the most of the opportunity we have to receive the gift of the Eucharist as often as possible. That's a reality we should embrace. Welcome back to reality.